I just finished a client call when the notification slid across my screen. At first, I thought it was spam, one of those phishing attempts that slip through the filters. The subject line was too abrupt, too cold. Your role is redundant. Leave immediately. No greeting, no explanation, no signature even. Just those 7 words, like a bullet fired into 22 years of loyalty. I sat there, fingers still resting on the keyboard, listening to the hum of the air conditioning. Outside, the office buzzed with its usual rhythm. Phones ringing, printers clattering, someone laughing too loud at a bad joke. Inside my chest, though, everything went still. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream, though my throat burned for it. I just stared at the email and felt the weight of every late night, every weekend sacrificed, every 5-star review I had personally delivered for this company. 2 decades of excellence erased with a single automated dismissal. I read it again, slower this time, as if the meaning might change. It didn't. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence settle. It wasn't anger that came first. It wasn't sadness either. It was something quieter, something sharper. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. They thought I would pack up quietly, shuffle out like a relic, and disappear into irrelevance. They thought they'd cut out a piece of furniture, not a human being. But I wasn't furniture, and I wasn't done. For 22 years, I had built the invisible spine of this company. I didn't just design the systems that made them efficient. I lived inside them, breathed them, protected them from collapse. What my boss never understood, what the board never cared to learn, was that all of it ran because of me. And only me. I stood up, smoothed my blouse, and walked to the restroom. The mirror met me with my own face. Lipstick still perfect, hair neat, expression unreadable. I held my own gaze until the shaking stopped. No breakdown, no begging. Not here. Not for them. Instead, I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a folder buried 6 levels deep, and tapped it open. Fail-safe protocol. No one knew about it, not even IT. Certainly not my boss. It was my insurance policy, born years ago during a crisis no one but me remembered. At the bottom of the screen was a single button, a kill switch. I didn't press it. Not yet. But just knowing it was there steadied me. Back at my desk, I started packing. Slowly, deliberately. Not the trinkets they gave me for Employee of the Year. Not the glass cubes engraved with empty slogans. Those meant nothing now. Instead, I chose carefully. The brass fountain pen from my father. My daughter's first-grade drawing, folded and faded. The small stone I kept from the beach the year my marriage collapsed, and I somehow survived. Things that mattered. Things that reminded me who I was outside these walls. As I packed, the email sat open on the screen, glaring back at me. My mouse hovered over the reply button more than once, but I didn't touch it. Words wouldn't serve me here. Not yet. That's when the second email came in. Please ensure you hand over your access cards, laptop, and any remaining company property to HR by 5 p.m. No signature again. No human voice. Just policy. It struck me, not as cruel, but as cowardly. 22 years of loyalty, and my boss didn't even have the decency to face me. I smiled. Just a small, bitter curve of my lips. Because in that moment, I understood something they never would. They weren't the ones in control. I was. When I finally walked out of the office, I didn't slam doors. I didn't shout or curse. I simply carried my box of belongings down the hallway while the hum of broken whispers followed me. Some coworkers looked away. Some looked guilty. And 1 or 2 looked almost relieved, like they thought it could have been them. Let them wonder. I kept walking, every step measured, every beat of my heart steady. They thought I was leaving quietly. And maybe, on the surface, I was. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that the kill switch had already been armed. Hidden. Waiting. And when the time came, I would flick it. and the empire they built on my back would fall with one command only I could reverse. I reached the parking lot, put the box on the passenger seat of my car, and sat for a moment in the quiet. The sun dipped low behind the building that had swallowed half my life. For the first time in years, I didn't feel owned by it. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom wasn't enough. Not anymore. This wasn't just about losing a job. It was about betrayal. And betrayal demands an answer. So I started the car, gripped the wheel, and whispered to myself, "They wanted me gone." Fine. But they're about to learn what redundant really means. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to the waterfront. It was my place. The spot I always went to when the world tilted sideways. A crooked old bench overlooked the harbor, the paint peeling, gulls circling like restless thoughts. I sat there with my box of belongings beside me, and the company's email still burned into my mind. Redundant. A word meant to describe broken furniture or outdated software. Not people. Not me. I breathed in the salt air and let the silence wrap around me. And slowly, anger began to seep in. Not the hot, reckless kind that burns fast, but the cold, steady kind that sits in your bones and sharpens into resolve. Because they hadn't just taken my job. They'd tried to erase me. For years, I'd been the invisible scaffolding that held the company upright. Most people didn't even realize that the systems they bragged about to investors, the seamless client portals, the automatic reporting dashboards, even the fraud detection modules, were my designs. My hands had built them. My mind had woven the connections no one else could see. And deep inside those systems, buried beneath layers of security protocols and firewalls, I had left something behind. A shadow key. A kill switch. It wasn't malicious when I first wrote it. Back then, it was insurance. After a server crash in my 10th year, caused by a reckless junior exec who overrode a firewall, I realized how fragile everything really was. So I designed a hidden failsafe, a way to regain control if the official chain of command ever failed. No one approved it. No one even knew it existed. It answered only to me. For 12 years, it sat there quietly, never touched. Until now. The company thought they were untouchable, but in their arrogance, they forgot something vital. Systems aren't just code. They're human. And I was the human they couldn't replace. I pulled out my laptop. The old one. The personal machine I never connected to their network. From a small encrypted drive, I opened the program. My hands hovered over the keys, steady, deliberate. It would have been easy to press enter right then, to watch their empire crumble in real time. But I didn't. Because I knew the weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just some digital prank. This was years of contracts, clients, salaries, data, everything they relied on. And part of me wondered if I was ready to burn it all. Then I thought of the email. No phone call, no handshake. No thank you. Just redundant. After 22 years of loyalty, they had discarded me like a paper cup. My jaw tightened. Yes, I was ready. The first step wasn't dramatic. No alarms, no flashing red screens. Just a quiet command line window, plain white text on black. I entered the password, one I'd memorized years ago. A combination of my daughter's birth date and the initials of my father, the man who taught me how to survive in a world that often wanted me small. Access granted. 2 words that sent a shiver through me. I typed in the sequence slowly, deliberately. Initiate failsafe. The cursor blinked once, then a message appeared. Confirm Y or N. I pressed Y, and just like that, the pulse began. It started with the non-essential systems, internal messaging, HR portals, calendar integrations. Within minutes, the first domino fell. Employees were logged out of their email accounts mid-conversation. Meetings vanished from calendars. Then came the bigger hits. Procurement servers froze, the analytics dashboard returned error codes, and automated invoices looped endlessly in draft mode. I pictured it in my mind, floor by floor, like lights shutting off in a skyscraper at dusk. And at the center of it all was Eric, my boss, the man who hadn't even signed his name to the email that ended my career. I imagined his panic when the first calls came in, his voice cracking as he barked orders he didn't understand, his hands fumbling with a system he never cared to learn. He would blame IT, then legal, then anyone but himself. But sooner or later, his eyes would turn to me, and I wanted him to. I closed the laptop and leaned back against the bench. The gulls squawked overhead, oblivious. The harbor lights flickered on one by one as the sun dipped lower. For a moment, I felt the urge to call someone, my daughter, maybe, or an old friend. But what would I say? That I'd just crippled the company I'd spent half my life building? That revenge felt less like fire and more like clarity? Number. This wasn't a confession. This was a beginning. Because the kill switch wasn't just destruction. Built into it was another layer, one they'd never find. A hidden framework, a skeleton version of the system that belonged to me and only me. While their servers choked on errors, mine hummed quietly in the background, untouched. I hadn't just shut them down. I had claimed my creation. As I packed up my laptop, I caught my reflection in the dark screen. My face looked the same as it had that morning, but something behind my eyes was different now. Not broken, not redundant. Awake. The phone in my pocket buzzed. First once, then again, then a flood of vibrations. I didn't need to check to know who it was. The company, my boss. Panic already spreading like wildfire. I smiled faintly. Let them sweat. For the first time in years, I wasn't on their clock anymore. Now, they were on mine. The first calls came within the hour. At first, I ignored them. Unknown numbers, company lines, legal, even Eric's personal cell. I let them ring out, one after another, until my phone was nothing but a restless hum on the table beside me. But then a message slipped through from an old colleague, Anna, the only one I trusted even a little. It was short. What did you do? The whole building is down. I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. I felt steady, as if I'd been waiting for this moment longer than I cared to admit. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop again and pulled up the diagnostics. I had designed the fail-safe like a tide. Silent, inevitable, impossible to stop once it began. The dashboards on their side would show chaos. Servers blinking offline, core applications timing out, financial databases returning error after error. But on my side, it was clean. Every process logged, every mirror intact. My private framework was running smoothly, and I realized something as I watched the little green bars tick along. I wasn't nervous anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else's approval. I wasn't anticipating Eric's smirk or the board's dismissive nods. I was free. But freedom doesn't come without consequences. By the next morning, the story had leaked outside the company walls. At first, it was just whispers on industry forums. Anyone else locked out of their client portal? Then a tweet from one of our vendors. Systems at Corp unresponsive. Urgent clarification needed. By noon, there were Reddit threads filled with screenshots of error messages. Speculation ran wild. Hackers, ransomware, a disgruntled employee. No one knew the truth, but everyone smelled blood. And Eric? He panicked. I didn't have to see him to know. I could picture it perfectly. The sweat on his brow, the twitch in his jaw, the way he barked at staff while fumbling for explanations he didn't have. He was good at one thing, pretending to be in control. But when the mask cracked, it shattered completely. Around 2 p.m, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a company number. It was Alicia, my former assistant. 26, underpaid, brilliant, and one of the few people who ever paid attention when I explained how things actually worked. Her message was careful. Eric's blaming IT. They're scrambling. Everyone knows it's bigger. Should I worry? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Alicia was smart. She would already suspect the truth. But she was also loyal, maybe too loyal for her own good. I typed back one sentence. Don't get caught in his mess. Step back. Trust me. 3 dots blinked, then vanished. She didn't reply. That told me everything. By evening, the company issued a press release. We are currently undergoing a scheduled systems review. Clients may experience temporary disruptions. Scheduled disruptions. I almost laughed. The desperation dripped off every word. But beneath the amusement was something heavier. Because this wasn't just about Eric. Hundreds of employees were now stuck, their work frozen. Clients were stranded, deals collapsing, money evaporating by the hour. And that's when the guilt crept in. Was I punishing the right people? Or had my quiet war already pulled innocence into the fire? I closed the laptop and rubbed my temples. Revenge always feels sharp in your mind. Clean, justified. But in practice, it's messy. Collateral damage bleeds into the picture whether you want it to or not. I thought about Anna, about Alicia, about the interns who'd whispered thank you after I shielded them from HR's nonsense. None of this was their fault. But they were caught in the storm just the same. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the city outside. Somewhere out there, Eric was pacing in his glass office, snapping at staff, demanding answers no one could give him. And I realized something important. Eric wasn't the only one who had underestimated me. I had underestimated myself. For years, I thought I needed their validation, their promotions, their praise, their 5-star reviews. I bent myself into knots proving my worth. But the moment they called me redundant, I finally saw the truth. I had been the foundation all along. They just hadn't noticed until it cracked. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, the steam curling upward. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Eric himself. No caller ID, just his voice when I answered. Mia. His tone was sharp, brittle. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is corporate sabotage. You'll be sued. You'll lose everything. Undo whatever you did, and maybe we can work something out. I listened in silence, letting him talk himself into circles. Then I finally said, calm and measured, You fired me by email, Eric. You made me redundant. So I acted accordingly. He sputtered something about lawyers and consequences, but I cut him off. You don't get it, I said softly. This isn't about lawyers. It's about ownership. And you never owned what I built. I hung up before he could reply. The silence after was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was mine. And as I sipped my coffee, I knew the cracks in their empire had only just begun to spread. Because the kill switch wasn't the end. It was the opening move. News doesn't spread in straight lines. It leaks, it trickles, it smears. By the time I finished my coffee the next day, the company's message had mutated 3 times. Scheduled maintenance, then a third-party vendor issue, then an unexpected anomaly. Each version contradicted the last. People can forgive bad news. They don't forgive lies that shift every hour. I kept the laptop closed and made a list with a pen. When the world gets loud, paper helps. Line 1, protect innocence. Line 2, document everything. Line 3, decide what to build, not just what to burn. Protect innocence meant Alicia first. I called her on a number she'd given me years ago, for emergencies that aren't in the handbook. She answered on the second ring, voice low. They locked the IT floor, she whispered. Eric's camping in the war room. He keeps saying your name like he's chewing it. Step back, I said. Back up your own work to a personal drive if you can do it legally. Don't execute anything on his orders you don't understand. And don't let them pin this on you. I won't, she said. A beat. Mia, did you do this? I made sure the system can't be used against the people who built it, I said. That's all you need to know. Silence. Then an exhale that sounded like relief and fear braided together. Okay. After we hung up, I opened the laptop. The diagnostics were steady. My skeleton framework clean, theirs choking on retrees. I toggled a setting I'd argued for years to implement publicly and was always denied. Client-side failover. It's not magic. It's discipline. I pushed a limited patch that allowed essential client data to sync to their local backups if they followed the instructions already in their contracts. No new access from my end, no data transfer, nothing that crossed a legal line. Just a green light for systems they already owned to do what they were designed to do. If they read the manuals I wrote, they'd manage. Most never did. But some would. That mattered. The next ripple hit the press. A small trade blog posted a story quoting an anonymous employee. "It's not ransomware. It's us." Minutes later, a video clip surfaced. Eric in the boardroom, collar askew, insisting the company had experienced a coordinated attack by a former staff member. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. The comments wrote it for him. If she was redundant, why is everything broken? My phone buzzed with a number I recognized from a former client's personal cell. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Mia," a familiar voice said, strained but controlled. "We can't access the reconciliation portal. We have quarter end in 2 days. Can you—" He stopped himself. "I don't mean to put you in a bad position." "I can't touch their systems," I said. "But check Schedule D in your contract. Page 2 has your local failover instructions. If you follow them exactly, you'll stabilize the critical functions." He hesitated. "That document had your signature." "It had my work," I corrected. "That's better than my name." We ended the call with a promise I didn't say aloud. If he did the work, it would hold. I made a note. Inbound only, no solicitation. Whatever came next had to be clean. By late afternoon, Anna sent me a photo of a memo. Grainy, angled, clearly shot in a hurry. The title hit like a familiar bruise. Leadership Optimization. Sunsetting Legacy Roles. Names blacked out. Headings not. Prioritize reductions among over 45 cohort. Minimize severance via performance flags. It was the kind of document people swear doesn't exist. It always does. It just lives in folders with nicer names. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "Printer tray on 9, she wrote. "Someone hit print all and forgot the paper." I saved it with the rest. Voicemails from Eric. The emails with no signatures, my design notes, the version history that proved authorship. I wasn't naive about risk. What I'd done would invite lawyers, but I had lived a long time inside the rules and under the people who bent them. I knew which lines mattered and which were stage props. Near dusk, Alicia called again. "He tried to rehire your whole team," she said. "Double salaries, no one bit. The contractors are walking. Legal is splitting into factions." "Are you safe?" I asked. "For now." HR asked me to draft a statement blaming a third-party vendor. I refused. I told them I won't sign my name to a lie. I smiled despite myself. "Good. And Mia? If I didn't stay?" Her voice steadied. "If I left?" "I'd tell you to leave with your head high and your notes backed up," I said. "And I'd tell you to rest for a week before you decide anything permanent." Rest. The word felt ridiculous and necessary at once. When we hung up, I opened a folder on my desktop I hadn't touched in months. The name was plain. Harbor. Inside were the building blocks of what I'd never been allowed to propose. Clean architecture, modular, transparent, with client-side autonomy baked in and vendor lock-in legislated out. Not a product, not yet. A promise. I'd started it the night after a board meeting where Eric had called my design too principled to monetize. I remember laughing alone in my car at how that sentence contained its own indictment. I registered a domain. I paid for a mailbox. I messaged a lawyer I trusted, the only one who'd ever told me no to my face and meant it kindly. I asked for a consult about non-solicits and IP boundaries. I told her I wanted to build something that didn't require anyone to sign away their spine. Then I took a breath and did one more thing. I drafted a short message to 3 clients who had my personal number for emergencies. I didn't pitch. I didn't gloat. I wrote, "Check your contract's failover section. If you need help understanding it, I can walk you through the language as an independent consultant." That was it. Clean lines, no crossings. Guilt still flickered at the edges. People I cared about were caught in a net I'd thrown. I knew that. But I also knew I hadn't created the net. I'd inherited it, patched it, strengthened it, and been rewarded with an email that treated my life's work like clutter. I closed the laptop and stood at the window. The city was a grid of small lights, each one a person trying to keep something standing. Systems are human. That was the message no one ever wanted to fund. Build as if people matter, and you build things that last. Pretend they don't, and the first hard win shows you what you've really made. My phone buzzed one last time before I slept. A text from an unknown number. "Are you accepting private contracts under a new entity?" No name. Just a question that felt like the start of a bridge. I didn't answer yet. I stared at the blinking cursor in the message box and pictured water, the bench, the gulls. Burn or build. I had done enough burning for one lifetime. Tomorrow I would choose. The morning after, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in years. No inbox waiting like a hungry mouth. No calendar stuffed with meetings that went nowhere. Just silence. For a moment, I lay there listening to the radiator tick, the city stirring outside, and wondered if this was what peace sounded like. But peace wasn't the same as purpose. And purpose had been the one thing the company couldn't take from me, no matter how many times they tried to bury me under younger hires or dismissive titles. On the kitchen counter, my laptop waited. The harbor folder was still open. Clean diagrams, untested frameworks, a skeleton waiting for flesh. I poured myself coffee, sat down and stared at it for a long time. If I pressed forward, there was no turning back. It wouldn't just be a side project. It would be the thing. My thing. And I was old enough now to know that mattered more than another plaque or another 5-star review. By mid-morning, Alicia called again. Her voice was steadier than yesterday. "I walked out," she said simply. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Free." Both a pause. "What now?" I thought about lying, about telling her to find something safe and quiet. But Alicia wasn't built for quiet. She was sharp, disciplined, the kind of mind I'd once been before years of corporate erosion dulled the edges. "What now?" I said, "is up to us. I'm building something new. Not another company that chews people up and spits them out. Something that stands because people stand together. Do you want in?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." That was the first brick. Word spread faster than I expected. 2 of the contractors I'd quietly advised during their own layoffs reached out. A legal consultant who had once beaten us in arbitration sent me a message. "If you're building, I want to help keep it clean." I didn't recruit. I didn't post job listings. People simply came. Not many, but enough. And every single one of them had scars. They weren't chasing prestige anymore. They wanted dignity. Meanwhile, Eric's empire collapsed in real time. Stock dipped, then plummeted. Clients jumped ship. The press unearthed that memo about sunsetting legacy roles, and the outrage practically wrote itself. Reporters tried calling me, but I declined every interview. I didn't need to explain myself. The truth was already written in their ruin. One evening, Anna sent me a clip of Eric on a live stream. He looked 10 years older in a week. His jaw was tight, his hair unkempt. "A rogue employee has sabotaged us," he insisted, voice trembling. The comments tore him apart. If she was so redundant, why is everything broken? Sounds like you fired your backbone, genius. For once, I didn't feel vindication. Just pity, because Eric never understood what leadership meant. He thought it was control. But leadership, real leadership, is trust. And no one trusted him anymore. Weeks passed. Harbor grew quietly, carefully. We onboarded our first client. a mid-sized firm that had been burned too many times by vendors who treated them like numbers. We promised them transparency, not perfection. And when the system worked exactly as designed, clean, stable, resilient, they sent me a thank you note that simply read, "You made us feel human again." That one line meant more than 22 years of plaques ever had. Then came the hardest call of all. My daughter. She'd followed the news. Of course she had. She was old enough now to understand what redundancy meant, but young enough to still believe in fairness. "Mom," she asked carefully, "did you really shut them down?" I thought about lying, about protecting her from the messier truth. But then I remembered every bedtime story I'd told her about bravery and honesty. "Yes," I said. "I built their systems, and I stopped them from using them against people like me." There was a pause. Then, softly, "Good." My throat tightened. I didn't cry, but I felt something shift, like a weight I'd carried for years had finally lifted. Looking back, the email that ended my career was the cruelest kindness I'd ever received. If they hadn't forced me out, I might still be there, grinding myself into dust for people who saw me as a number on a balance sheet. Instead, I discovered what redundancy really meant. Not being unnecessary, but being irreplaceable in ways they never recognized. Eric tried to erase me. The board tried to erase me. But I wasn't gone. I was here, still building, still standing, and finally doing it on my own terms. One night, I returned to the waterfront bench where it all began. The kill switch, the decision, the silence. The gulls wheeled overhead, and the harbor lights shimmered on the water. I sat with a notebook, not a laptop, and wrote one sentence at the top of a blank page. Build as if people matter. That was the message. That was the blueprint. And as I closed the notebook and looked out over the water, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't redundant. I was free.